My name is Sarah Kim. I'm 45 years old, and I thought 18 years of saving for my daughter's education meant something until my ex-husband looked the mediator in the eye and said, "Sarah never saved enough for college." What I discovered next proved that while I was sacrificing vacations and luxuries to build our daughter's future, he was planning to steal it all for his new wife's cosmetic surgery. Before I tell you how one bank statement shattered my faith in co-parenting and how 18 years of deposit records exposed the most selfish theft I could have imagined, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how 4 words, for Tiffany's surgery, revealed that some people will steal their own child's future to fund their midlife crisis. Let me take you back to where this story really begins. I married Daniel Kim when I was 23 years old, fresh out of college with an accounting degree and dreams of building a stable, loving family. Daniel was 25, working as a sales manager for a medical equipment company, and we seemed perfectly matched in our goals and values. Our daughter Emma was born 2 years later, in 2002, and from the moment I held her in my arms, I knew that her education would be my top priority. Having grown up in a family that struggled financially, I was determined that Emma would have every opportunity I hadn't had. When Emma was just 6 months old, I opened a $529 college savings plan in her name. My goal was ambitious but achievable: save enough to cover 4 years of college tuition, room, board, and expenses at a good state university. Based on my calculations as an accountant, I determined that saving $250 per month consistently for 18 years, with compound interest, would give Emma approximately $85,000 for college, enough to graduate debt-free from most state schools. Daniel supported the plan in theory, but he wasn't as committed to the strict saving discipline it required. He preferred to live in the moment, enjoying our money on immediate pleasures, rather than setting it aside for a future that seemed distant and abstract. "Emma's smart," he would say when I reminded him about our monthly college fund contribution. "She'll probably get scholarships. We don't need to save every penny for something that might not even be necessary." But I persisted. Every month, I transferred $250 from our joint checking account to Emma's college fund. When Daniel got raises or bonuses, I increased the contribution. When I got my CPA certification and started earning more, I bumped our monthly savings to $300, then $350. The discipline was significant. It meant saying no to expensive vacations, driving older cars longer, shopping at discount stores, and generally living below our means so that Emma could have opportunities we were sacrificing. Daniel often complained about these sacrifices, especially when friends were taking elaborate vacations or buying new cars that we couldn't afford because of our college savings commitment. "Other parents don't save like this," he would argue. "Kids take out student loans. That's normal. We're depriving ourselves for something Emma can handle herself when the time comes." But I had worked in financial planning early in my career, and I understood the devastating impact of student loan debt on young people's futures. I wanted Emma to start her adult life with freedom and opportunities, not crushing debt that would limit her choices for decades. As Emma grew, she understood that our family made different choices than some of her friends' families. We didn't take Disney vacations or stay in fancy hotels, but we had a comfortable home, good food, and most importantly, security. "Why don't we go on big trips like Ashley's family?" Emma asked when she was 10 years old. "Because we're saving money for something even more important," I explained. "We're saving for your college education so you can become anything you want to be." Emma seemed to understand and appreciate our priorities, even as a child. She was an excellent student, clearly college-bound, and she often mentioned her excitement about choosing a university when she got older. By the time Emma was in middle school, our marriage was showing serious strain. Daniel had become increasingly resentful of our conservative lifestyle and my insistence on prioritizing long-term financial goals over immediate enjoyment. "You care more about money than you do about living," he complained. "We're missing out on life because you're obsessed with saving for the future." "I care about Emma's future," I replied, "and about building security for our family." But Daniel wanted spontaneity, adventure, and the freedom to spend money on things that brought immediate pleasure. The fundamental difference in our values and priorities became an ongoing source of conflict. When Emma was 14, Daniel and I divorced after 2 years of increasingly difficult marriage counseling. The process was relatively amicable, with shared custody and Daniel paying child support that covered most of Emma's day-to-day expenses. The most important negotiation, from my perspective, was ensuring that Emma's college fund remained protected and continued to grow. Since the account was in Emma's name with both Daniel and me as co-owners, I insisted that any withdrawals require both our signatures. "That's fine," Daniel agreed. "I want Emma to go to college too. I just think you've been too extreme about saving for it." The divorce decree specified that both parents would continue contributing to Emma's education fund, though I ended up making most of the deposits since Daniel's child support payments were calculated to cover current expenses rather than future savings. Over the next 4 years, I continued my disciplined saving, now contributing $400 per month to Emma's college fund from my post-divorce budget. It was a significant expense for a single mother, but Emma's education remained my top priority. Daniel remarried when Emma was 16. His new wife, Tiffany, was 28 years old, just 17 years older than Emma, and worked as a marketing coordinator for a cosmetics company. She was beautiful, bubbly, and had very different priorities than the ones that had driven our marriage. Tiffany loved shopping, expensive restaurants, spa treatments, and the kind of lifestyle that Daniel had always wanted but couldn't afford while we were married and saving for Emma's college. Emma's relationship with Tiffany was polite but distant. She seemed to understand that Tiffany represented everything our family had chosen not to prioritize during her childhood: immediate gratification over long-term planning. "Tiffany thinks you're too serious about money," Emma mentioned after spending a weekend at Daniel's house. "She says teenagers shouldn't have to worry about their parents' financial stress." I tried not to react negatively to Tiffany's opinions, but I was concerned about the influence she might have on Daniel's commitment to Emma's education fund. My concerns were validated 6 months ago, just as Emma was beginning her senior year of high school and starting to research colleges seriously. We had scheduled a meeting with a financial aid counselor to review Emma's college fund balance and plan her applications strategically. I logged into the 529 account online the night before our appointment to print out recent statements for the counselor. What I saw made my stomach drop. The account balance was Prop 0. 18 years of saving, 85. 0 in contributions plus compound interest, completely gone. I stared at the screen in disbelief, refreshing the page multiple times, thinking there must be some technical error or website malfunction. But the transaction history told the devastating story. Over the past 4 months, there had been a series of large withdrawals, each one requiring both co-owner signatures, totaling exactly $89,247, every penny Emma had for college. The withdrawals were dated and documented. July 15th, 25-0, August 3rd, 20-0, August 30th, 22-0, September 12th, 22,247. Each withdrawal showed both my electronic signature and Daniel's electronic signature, but I had never authorized any of these transactions. Someone had forged my signature or gained access to my account credentials. I immediately called the 529 Plan Administrator's fraud hotline, reporting the unauthorized withdrawals and demanding an investigation. "Ma'am," the customer service representative explained, "these transactions were all authorized using valid electronic signatures from both account holders. Do you have reason to believe your co-owner made these withdrawals without your consent?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I never authorized any of these withdrawals. My daughter is starting her senior year of high school. We need this money for college." The representative walked me through the electronic signature process. Each withdrawal had been initiated using Daniel's login credentials, but the system showed that my electronic signature had been provided through the shared access feature that Daniel and I had set up years earlier for account management convenience. Apparently, Daniel had been able to authorize withdrawals using both our signatures because of the shared access setting we had established during our marriage. The bank's security protocols were satisfied because both account holders' credentials were used, even though I had never actually approved the transactions. "This is fraud," I told the representative. "I need these transactions reversed immediately." "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but these transactions appear to be legitimate based on our security protocols. You'll need to resolve this dispute with your co-account holder or through legal channels." I hung up and immediately called Daniel. Daniel, I need you to explain why there's no money in Emma's college fund, I said the moment he answered. There was a long pause before he responded. Sarah, we need to talk about this in person. Can you come over tonight? No, we can talk about it right now. Where is Emma's college money? Another pause. I had to use it for some urgent expenses, but I can explain everything if you'll just come over and discuss this rationally. Urgent expenses? I repeated. You stole 85,000 from our daughter's college fund for urgent expenses? I didn't steal anything, Daniel said defensively. I'm a co-owner of that account. I have every legal right to make withdrawals. Legal right doesn't make it morally right, I replied. That money was for Emma's education. We saved for 18 years specifically for her college expenses. Look, I know you're upset, but there were circumstances you don't understand. Can we please discuss this face to face? I agreed to meet Daniel the next evening, but I spent the intervening day gathering documentation and consulting with a family law attorney about my options. The attorney confirmed my worst fears. Since Daniel was a legal co-owner of the 529 account, his withdrawals were technically legitimate from a legal standpoint. However, since the funds were specifically designated for Emma's education and protected under our divorce decree, I might have grounds for legal action. The key question, the attorney explained, is what he used the money for. If he can demonstrate that the funds were used for Emma's benefit or legitimate family emergencies, it will be harder to recover. But if he used the money for personal expenses unrelated to Emma's welfare, you have a stronger case. That evening, I met Daniel at a coffee shop near his house. He looked uncomfortable and defensive from the moment I arrived. Before you start yelling, he began, I want you to understand that I didn't want to use Emma's college money. But we had a situation that required immediate cash, and the 529 account was the only available resource. What situation could possibly justify stealing our daughter's college fund? I asked. Daniel looked around nervously, as if checking to make sure no one could overhear our conversation. Tiffany needed surgery, he said finally. Medical surgery that wasn't covered by insurance. It was urgent, and we didn't have any other way to pay for it. What kind of surgery? I pressed. Daniel's face reddened. It's personal. Medical issues that required immediate attention. But something in his tone and body language suggested he wasn't telling the truth. As an accountant, I had learned to recognize when people were being evasive about financial matters. Daniel, what kind of surgery did Tiffany have that cost 85,000 and wasn't covered by insurance? It was a series of procedures, he said vaguely. Complex medical issues that required specialized treatment. I stared at him across the coffee shop table, realizing that my ex-husband had stolen our daughter's entire college fund and was now lying to my face about why. I want to see the medical bills, I said firmly. That's private information, Daniel replied. Tiffany's medical records aren't your business. Emma's college fund is my business, I shot back. If you used her money for legitimate medical expenses, you should be able to prove it. Daniel became increasingly agitated. I don't have to justify my financial decisions to you, Sarah. We're divorced. The 529 account is in both our names, and I had every right to access that money when we needed it. For Emma's education, I said. That money was specifically for Emma's education. Emma can get student loans like everyone else, Daniel replied. This was a medical emergency. The callousness of his response was breathtaking. 18 years of sacrifice, of living below our means, of prioritizing Emma's future over immediate gratification, dismissed with, she can get student loans like everyone else. I left the coffee shop more determined than ever to discover what had really happened to Emma's college money. The breakthrough came 2 days later, when Emma herself provided the missing piece of the puzzle. Mom, I need to tell you something about Tiffany, Emma said during our weekly dinner together. What about Tiffany? She's been getting a lot of plastic surgery lately. Like, a lot. Dad asked me not to mention it to you, but I think you should know. Emma explained that over the past 4 months, the exact time frame of the 529 account withdrawals, Tiffany had undergone a series of cosmetic procedures, breast augmentation, liposuction, a tummy tuck, and facial procedures. She looks completely different, Emma said, and she keeps talking about how expensive it all was and how grateful she is that Dad was able to pay for everything. The timeline was perfect. 85,000 worth of cosmetic surgery procedures, spread over 4 months, funded by Emma's college savings account. Daniel hadn't used the money for medical emergencies. He had used it to pay for his young wife's elective cosmetic surgery while telling me it was for urgent medical needs. Armed with this information, I confronted Daniel one final time before taking legal action. "I know what you used Emma's college money for," I said when he answered the phone. "I already explained that to you," he replied. "Tiffany's plastic surgery isn't a medical emergency, Daniel. Breast implants and liposuction aren't urgent medical needs." The silence on the other end of the phone confirmed everything. "You stole our daughter's college fund to pay for your wife's cosmetic surgery," I continued. 18 years of saving for Emma's education, gone so that Tiffany could get a new body. "It's not that simple," Daniel said weakly. "It's exactly that simple. You chose your new wife's vanity over your daughter's future." I hung up and immediately called my attorney to begin legal proceedings to recover Emma's college money. The legal process took 4 months and revealed even more disturbing details about Daniel's financial priorities. During discovery, we obtained records showing that Daniel and Tiffany were living far beyond their means, with significant credit card debt and no savings. Rather than address their financial problems responsibly, Daniel had chosen to raid Emma's college fund to pay for luxury expenses that they couldn't afford. The case was ultimately resolved through mediation, with Daniel's attorney acknowledging that using designated education funds for cosmetic surgery violated the spirit of our divorce decree. Daniel was ordered to repay the full $89,247 to Emma's college account, plus interest and legal fees. Since he didn't have the cash available, he was required to take out a personal loan secured by his house. The repayment plan stretched over 3 years, meaning Emma would have access to her full college fund by her sophomore year, but not in time for her freshman year expenses. Emma qualified for partial financial aid and merit scholarships that covered most of her first-year costs, and I used my savings to cover the remaining expenses. The most satisfying moment came 6 months later during our final mediation session to confirm Daniel's repayment progress. Daniel's attorney attempted one last time to justify his actions. "My client maintains that Sarah never saved enough for college and that Emma should be responsible for her own education expenses through loans and scholarships." That's when I opened my folder and placed 18 years of deposit records on the mediation table. "Let me clarify something," I said, looking directly at Daniel. "Over 18 years, I made 216 monthly deposits to Emma's college fund. The total contributions were 85,000, which grew to 89,247 with compound interest. I showed the mediator page after page of bank records documenting every single monthly transfer from our joint account to Emma's 529 plan. Additionally," I continued, "here are the records showing that 89% of these contributions came from my income, not Daniel's." Daniel's face went pale as the mediator reviewed the evidence. "These records show that Sarah was solely responsible for funding Emma's college education for the entire 18 years, the mediator noted. Daniel's contributions were minimal and sporadic. I placed one final document on the table: Tiffany's cosmetic surgery payment records, obtained through legal discovery. "Daniel didn't use this money for medical emergencies," I said. "He used it for his wife's breast augmentation, liposuction, tummy tuck, and facial procedures. 4 elective cosmetic surgeries totaling exactly 85,000. The mediator looked at Daniel with obvious disapproval. "Mr. Kim, you used your daughter's college fund to pay for your wife's cosmetic surgery?" Daniel couldn't meet anyone's eyes. "We can discuss the repayment schedule," he mumbled. "The repayment schedule is already established," the mediator replied firmly. "What we're discussing now is your compliance with it." Today, Emma is a sophomore in college, studying pre-med with dreams of becoming a pediatrician. Her college fund has been fully restored, and she'll graduate debt-free as I always planned. Daniel and Tiffany divorced 8 months after our mediation concluded. Apparently, the financial strain of repaying the college fund loan, combined with their existing debt, created irreconcilable stress in their marriage. Emma maintains a relationship with her father, but she's never forgotten that he was willing to steal her future to pay for his wife's vanity. She's learned valuable lessons about financial responsibility and the importance of protecting what you've worked to build. The most important lesson I learned is that some people will steal anything, even their own child's future, if they think they can justify it to themselves. Daniel convinced himself that Emma could just get student loans so that Tiffany could have cosmetic surgery. But I also learned that patience and documentation are powerful tools. 18 years of careful record-keeping proved exactly who had sacrificed to build Emma's college fund and exactly what Daniel had stolen it for. The woman who saved $250 a month for 18 years learned that protecting your child's future sometimes means fighting for it in court. But it also means that when someone tries to steal what you've built through sacrifice and discipline, you have the evidence to fight back. Emma's education was worth every dollar saved and every legal fee spent to protect it. Have you ever had someone steal something you spent years building? How do you protect your children's futures from people who would sacrifice them for immediate gratification? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about protecting what matters most, fighting for your children, and holding people accountable when they betray your trust.